I guess I would also I come with my Niponza Miyahoji drum and also do some drumming and chanting, and we'll sort of we can position so that we can all have audio space and not be interrupted. So I thank you for allowing me to do this on Holy Week and arranging my schedule to make it happen.
Welcome, Donna. Darcy?
I'm Leo, and also known as Darcy or Chiha. I have at least 3 names. Chiha is a Burmese name, means lion. I'm a vegetarian. And Darcy is the name my mother gave me, and it was misspelled on my birth certificate, so I don't use it. And Leo is my grandfather's name, and I honor him by using the name. And why I'm here, it probably goes back to my father, who always told me, try and just put your drop in the right bucket. And so I'm here to support people. I'm an anthropologist by training, and I'm retired now, and I work in the areas of social justice, human rights, and medical access for people all over the world, including the Rohingya, the Western Shoshone, Palestinians. So you could ask me about any of those areas. I have a home in Southeast Asia, and I'm based there. So I work with Cambodians and Vietnamese and Burmese and Laotians. So that's about it. My mission is just to help you guys out. So sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's just with footsteps and walking. I'm closing out my 80th year with a walk, and I've walked with some of these people and been arrested with them multiple times. I think it's 8 for us, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, and that's about it. So feel free to use any one of my name and talk to me about anything to talk to me about.
All right. Thanks everybody for introducing yourselves. A little awkward with the computer, but we got everything set up and we're ready for our virtual part of the orientation. Pegasus, I want to welcome you to the group, and I see we do have a few other individuals joining in too. Thanks everybody for introducing yourselves. A little awkward with the computer, but we got everything set up and we're ready for our virtual part of the orientation. Pegasus, I want to welcome you to the group, and I see we do have a few other individuals joining in too. Thanks everybody for introducing yourselves.
Yeah, we have about 20 seconds for each of the 3 speakers just to say hi. That there'll be Amy and Dale and Kelly. And I'm going to try to make sure that there's less audio problems. I don't know if that's going out over YouTube or not, but I'm Pegasus, and let's hear a little bit from Dale, Amy, and Kelly in that order, if we can.
Hi, I'm Dale, pronouns they, them, and I've been working with NDE in an official capacity for, I think, 5 years now, but I've been on the peripheral of NDE forever.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm virtually coming to you from Florida. And I attended my first peace walk 20 years ago. I'm doing the math. That's hard to believe. And I was involved with NDE as a student and then as a coordinator for a few years. Happy to be with you all.
Hello, my name is Kelly Lundeen. I use she, her pronouns. I live in northwestern Wisconsin, which is land stolen from the ancestral people here, the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe. And I work with Nuke Watch up here. minutes.
Okay,
I will.
I think that things are working. I can see people on the screen, so if my audio is not working, somebody let me know because these headphones aren't gonna work very well. Hopefully you can still hear me. Again, I'm Pegasus, and thanks. I see the feedback there. We're gonna talk just for like 5 minutes on 3 different sections on some generic nuclear stuff and some historical stuff where we get to hear a little bit from some of our speakers, and then some of the health and safety stuff. So it's going to be kind of rapid fire. So it's good that it's being recorded and sent out on YouTube so you could watch it later if we end up talking too fast. So let's go ahead and look at some of these images while I tell you the story. Generically speaking, the history of human cultures, it's been a long time that the nuclear age has been going from our perspective here in the year 2023, but traditional human cultures were incapable of rapidly destroying the global human habitat. Stars are where nuclear reactions happen. It's a nice, safe distance from the planet. But when that kind of nuclear power that's safe out in space happens on Earth, it's a big problem. So 20th century technology has led to actually 2,066 nuclear bombs going off on this planet. The US is responsible for about half of those. And there's the countries listed there: Russia, France, UK, China, North Korea, Israel, and India, and Pakistan. But there's also Turkey, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, and Deutschland, aka Germany, that are hosting the weapons, some of the US weapons. So some activists decry nuclearism equally, complaining about the mining, the toxic waste, and the racism and genocide and ecocide. And some activists focus specifically, like NDE did in its first 15 years or so, 20 years maybe, just on the nuclear weapons. But now NDE is doing a little bit better and focusing on the whole cycle. So the activism has included all these line crossings at the nuclear test site, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into more specifics later. And the prayer actions usually include the option for risking arrest as a matter of conscience. And so many different varieties of ways that people have done that at daytime, at nighttime, and secular and spiritually motivated civil resistance at the Nevada National Security Site, aka test site, has run the gamut of lots of creativity. And there's been those celebrities out there as well, back in the 80s usually. There's a treaty signed in 2017 called the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And that one offers some hope for potential nuclear abolition for a lot of the nations on the planet. But the TPNW is ignored by all 9 nuclear weapons wielding nations, and probably those 5 too, the other ones that hold the weapons. And international trade is still affected because of that semi-promising treaty. NDE's prayer actions generally announced in advance, and they're usually limited to a formal public line crossing at the highway, but sometimes the minority of those actions include backcountry stuff, and then there's been other actions. 16,000 arrests in the last 40 years at the Nevada test site, and Creech as a target of protest formally began in NDE's focus in 2009. All of the actions, all the civil resistance actions that include civil disobedience have a wider impact from many of the folks that are not arrested, including a lot of the people that are there with you right now in Vegas. But everybody has an opportunity for sending this out on social media, and there's our social media platforms as well as the hashtags you can use. So we invite you all to echo the goodness in your home communities now with your immediate social media, and afterwards this week when you return to your home communities. Before we go on to a little bit more of the historical timeline, I wanted to just stop the screen share for a second and check in visually. Dale and Amy and Kelly, does it matter which one of you goes first for your 2 or 3 minute story of how you got involved? Nobody's showing any. You want to go first, Kelly? Oh yeah, Kelly's got a meeting after this. So let's go ahead and have you go, Kelly, first, and then I'll get into some of the overall timeline history, and then Dale and Amy could either interrupt or we'll wait till that my diatribe is over. But go ahead, Kelly, for like 2 or 3 minutes.
Sure. So I think my beginning of my journey into being a nuclear abolitionist probably, I don't think it was at any of the high points of the movements. It was in 1998. So I was in college and I was very involved in radical environmental groups, and through them was becoming more aware of social issues and this the economic sanctions in Iraq, and learned about the U.S. deliberately bombing people in bomb shelters in the 91 Iraq War. And then I decided to do a short internship in Washington, D.C., where I was housed a block away from Dorothy Day Catholic Worker in Washington, D.C. And I got to hang out with the Catholic workers there and attend the Faith and Resistance retreat, where I met some Habakasha. And that was the first time I really felt the depth of what our U.S. history has had on people around the world and nuclear weapons, and just meeting the Catholic workers and their willingness to spend time in jail and prison, and was what touched me and really got me into the movement. And now I've been working with Nuke for 8 years. It's a Nuke based in Wisconsin, so it's different than there's other Nuke. There's another one in the Southwest. And since I've been working with Nuke, I've learned a lot more about nuclear power and radioactive waste. And I also, in my other work, in other things I've worked on, I'm always working on anti-racism is a strong value, and so I wanted that to be a part of my anti-nuclear work. And in the nuclear weapons circle, part of our movement has been kind of lacking in some critical analysis, which you were mentioning, Pegasus. And so focusing on radioactive waste and nuclear power has really been a place where I've been able to bring out some of my values of anti-racism, and where it's been able to be more active. And so focusing on radioactive waste and nuclear power has really been a place where I've been able to bring out some of the
Pegasus.
Okay, thanks. So 150,000 years ago, the first hominids showed up in this Great Basin desert. That's Nevada in the middle of that, and there's those lakes back there, 150,000, and also the people started showing up in different waves, different cultures over the millennia. Let's see. Meanwhile, in Europe, St. Francis was born in 1182, and that led to 800 years later for NDE being started. But the Numic language people here in this desert that you guys are in, those of you that are in Vegas, I'll see you guys in a few days. The Numic language folks, the Numic culture people, that includes the Shoshone and the Paiutes, spread out from that area. That was about the 1300s. And then in 1863, well, actually before that, in the European invasion happened, 520 or so years ago. And that led to fights between indigenous folks and the invading Europeans. So there was forts and military sites set up. And then there was this beautiful treaty, the Treaty of Ruby Valley in 1863 with the Shoshone folks. And this is Tokmatini, or also known as Sarah Winnemucca. Her dad was Shoshone and her mom was Paiute. And she's one of the first activists that did a lot of writing and supporting of the Paiute nation and her people. So in the 1940s, the nuclear weapons testing began in the South Pacific, but here's one in Nevada in 1951 when that started. So 4 years later, the Russell, that's Bertrand Russell and Albert Einstein, wrote this thing at Pugwash and tried to warn people about the dangers of nuclear weapons. That's the late 50s. And then Also in the late 50s and early 60s, there's activism that's starting up, direct action style around the planet, including Utah and Nevada, so-called Nevada. In 1961, there was actually 50,000 women that marched all over the USA. It's the Women March for Peace. And then in 62, Sister Clarita and Sister Lynch, Rosemary Lynch, met in Rome during Vatican II, and they helped start some of the precursors for NDE a couple of decades later. This global activism in 1963 led to the above ground nuclear testing ban. And then 15 years later, the Sagebrush Alliance was happening with Sister Rosemary Lynch, is in all those pictures, I think. And that led to Nevada Desert Experience. But between that Sagebrush Alliance and NDE, Dorothy Day died. She was one of the first people to write against the articles against the nuclear weapons in the 40s. She died in 1980. And then in June of 1982, the largest action against nuclear weapons was in June in New York City. And that was also the year that St. Francis's 800th birthday, drawing that connection back to Europe 800 years before. So these four people started Nevada Desert Experience. That's Ann Simmons Booker at the bottom. Louis Vitale is also still alive. I guess all of them are still alive, but Louis is less active these days, and Ann is active in other areas. But Louis is in Oakland. I think Ann is as well. And in 1985, after the NDE had been around for 3 years, the American Peace Test began. That massively grew the movement in Nevada, because NDE was always like less than, about 200 people or so until the APT came along in 85. And then the Shoshone folks got involved. Corbin Harney and Pauline Estevez came down in 1986 from their respective Shoshone places where they lived. And there's Corbin Harney crossing the cattle guard, which is called the White Line these days. Anyway, so they got their folks involved, and Bill Rossi was part of that. And then there was this national activities going on against nuclear weapons. You can see on the left side of that schedule, all those different places on a speaking tour. And then it became more international when the folks in Kazakhstan got inspired and called their movement the Nevada Semipalatinsk movement. And so they made that logo with for their movement, because they just thought what was going on in Nevada was really cool. In October of 1992, it was the 500th anniversary of the invasion of the Europeans on North America. So that's when there was a Healing Global Wounds event. And that year and the next year, 93, the Goddess Temple was built by women. You guys will be seeing that this week. I'll be there by that time you get there on Tuesday night, I guess. Let's see, Dorothy Day died before we get there. There's 2009 is when, I guess I skipped a step. But anyway, in 2009, Creech Air Force Base became focus with NDE's actions. And so our prayer walks are very much more focused on Creech than they were before 2009, because it was mostly about the test site. And then because in 2006, what happened was Creech started doing the Predators and the Reapers, those drones. So in 2009, became a regular thing in 2000 for NDE to focus both on Creech and the test site. 2010, the NNSS became a thing rather than the NTS in terms of names. 2017, North Korea did their nuclear bomb test, and ICANN took the Peace Prize for that, starting that treaty. And then a few days ago, the Vatican finally repudiated the doctrine of discovery, which, as it says there, was used legally, and it still is used legally in many places, including the United States, to justify legal precedent for justifying racism and nuclear colonialism. Dale, did you have anything that you wanted to throw in, any tidbits of, for 2 minutes of your journey in the world, in the nuclear age, in the nuclear abolition movement?
Yeah, thank you. I originally got involved doing test site work back in 1986. I moved to California in 86, and when I was hanging out at a bookstore in LA, I met an activist who was with SANE, who was telling me about a gathering at the test site. I'm thinking this was probably September-ish of 86. And so that she invited me to go with her. And that was my first experience on seeing the desert. Because when I came to California, I flew, didn't get to experience the desert. Fell in love with the desert. got arrested that day with, I don't know, maybe 700, 800 other people. It was a fairly big one. And then my second event was the Mother's Day action in 87, I believe. And I went with my mom. And I had to promise my mom I wouldn't get arrested again because I was a minor at the time and she did not want to deal with getting me out of jail in Beatty. So I told her I had a much better plan, which was just to lie about my age and give him a fake name when I got arrested. But she decided after being there, got so wrapped up in it, that the two of us climbed the fence together and got arrested together on Mother's Day, which has just been one of my absolute favorite memories. And I think there was close to 2,000 of us who got arrested that particular day. Many of us were just cycling back through because they would bus us into Mercury at that point, give us our tickets and bus us out. So as we were getting off the bus, we were turning around and walking back across the cattle guard. And it was an amazing day. And I think there was close to 2,000 of us who got arrested. Oh, that's weird. But it was a really, it was a very magical time for me. And that's when I really began my commitment to doing anti-nuke work and supporting indigenous land rights in the Mojave Desert. And I've been living in the Mojave Desert most of the time since then.
Well, thank you so much, Dale, and also Kelly for sharing your stories. Amy, do you want to jump in?
I would be happy to. So I got involved with Nevada Desert Experience, as I mentioned, for the Peace Walk 20 years ago. I was a student graduating from the Franciscan School of Theology that used to be in Berkeley, and was really touched by my experience so much that I decided to stay with the movement for the following few years as my primary ministry and career at that time. And one of the programs that was very touching and important to me and to all of us was the introduction of an immersion experience. And primary ministry and career at that time. And one of the programs that
Pegasus,
I can hear myself, sorry.
Pegasus, your audio, can you mute?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
That's good. So we introduced a program that was meant to introduce a new generation of people, primarily young people, students, to the work of Nevada Desert Experience, the work of anti-nuclear activism, but from a holistic lens. And so we created a program that brought young people, any people, to where you all are staying in Las Vegas. We stayed at the Friary, and we looked at the test site issue from, again, kind of a number of different perspectives. Socioeconomic, we served at the visited and spent time at the Las Vegas Catholic Worker, served at the soup line there, stayed at the Friary. We spent time at the Cold War Museum, which is a truly surreal place. And we also spent time in nature. So we were looking again at it from an environmental perspective, from the lens of racism, from the lens of indigenous rights. We spent time with Corbin Harney while he was still living at his land, Shoshone land. And we integrated into all of that experience, and also time at the Goddess Temple. Our times were integrated with times of reflection and listening, movement and prayer. And it was just a lovely way to get educated and become active on a number of issues that are all related.
Thank you, Amy. I got to participate in one of those immersions. Hi, I'm Chelsea, and it was transformative for me during Lent, during Holy Week, before Holy Week. And I think shortly after that, around 2000, 6 or so is when the Holy Week Peace Walk became the Sacred Peace Walk to honor the many different religious holidays that happened during this week. So Pegasus, back over to you.
Thank you. Is my microphone working okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about the health and safety risks. And I know we're short on time for this orientation. And again, all this stuff is available on our website, and I'll be there on Monday night to be with you all to share more documentation if need be. So as we probably have heard a few times, the Nevada National Security Site in New Segovia, this testing ground, is the most heavily bombed place on Earth with these massive explosions. Yet it's only one area of concern in the entire nuclear cycle. It's been impacting human health and other animal and plant health tremendously for generations now. But Livermore, Los Alamos, and Sandia are the three main facilities designing the destruction at the Nevada Proving Ground or the test site or the NNSS. And they still do that. But they also, those entities have detonated nuclear weapons in Alaska and the South Atlantic and the Pacific and Fallon, Fallon, Nevada, and Mississippi and New Mexico and Colorado. There's a lot of places that nuclear weapons have gone off, and the randomized spread of nuclear fallout is not just in Nevada, but it's also in other places on the planet. So what's important while you're here walking in Nevada, even though the background radiation is allegedly the same as a lot of other places in the desert and in Vegas, it's important to take to wear masks when the wind is blowing, to definitely keep your shoes separate from food areas, which is kind of common practice in other kinds of health arenas as well. We want to just be as safe as we can, because with the alpha and the beta and the gamma radiation, all those particles, the gamma is easiest to detect, but alpha and beta are not as dangerous when they're outside the human or the animal body, but when they go inside through ingesting, like through your food or through breathing it in, that's a problem. So another example of like what is happening with the potential health risks is that you think about the fact that people live in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and people work at the Nevada National Security Site. So there's risks everywhere on the planet, and some people's bodies are more susceptible than others. The whole planet needs to be protected against this stuff. And the risks that we take in life, whether we're getting in a car or going skiing or playing football or slam dancing or going to the nuclear test site, we take these risks with knowing that there are hazards of getting in a car, for instance, and there's hazards of being anywhere on the planet where there's radioactive fallout, which is everywhere, and maybe a little bit more when you're in the desert and the wind is blowing towards you. So it's always done with consciousness, and we're glad that people are willing to take certain risks, including risking arrest. But we want everybody to be, to show good measure of safety with whatever you do. And I was going to bring up the Sedan crater at the Nevada test site. They had that program, the Atoms for Peace, where they would promulgate nuclear power around the planet and blow off some nuclear bomb saying, look, we can make a new Panama Canal, et cetera. So the Sedan crater was a Sedan test that if you go on a tour of the test site, they still allow this. You could go out there. They could let you be there for half an hour or so, but standing at that crater, I think they only let you be out there for about 10 minutes because the background radiation at the Sedan crater on the other side of the mountain from where we'll be on our peace walk. An hour of standing there at the Sedan crater that they allow people to go to and invite people to do is the same as like a chest x-ray or a whole year worth of background radiation, because we're always being hit by radiation on this planet. And some of it is more deadly than others, and some places are more hazardous than others. So it's unknown what's happening, but we can just take better safety precautions when we're out closer and closer to the Nevada National Security Site, which could be more dangerous when the wind is blowing, or it's mostly, I guess, when the wind is blowing, or if you find the right hotspot. Another example of these hotspots is when they were testing for Yucca Mountain to see whether or not it was a good site for putting all the nuclear waste. They found radionuclides and they said, oh, this is from 30 miles away where nuclear testing was happening, but it was from hundreds of miles away from the South Pacific that landed on Yucca Mountain. So when people look for radiation, you'll find it all over this planet, and it could be from far away. Let's see, I think that's, yeah, I just wanted to finish with most folks that are coming on these prayer actions, including the folks, you guys this week in Nevada, and some of the people that have gone before and that may come next year on other events that we do. We're all taking risks in life, and you guys that are doing this walk, you have to determine for yourself what is, and your own personal health, what is important. And most people that have done this in the past, these past 40 or so years, and this year included, most of us are taking risks, whether it's risking arrest or walking, if you haven't been walking lately, you know, just all the different things you do, or walking in a place that's potentially more radioactive hazardous, potentially. We're all doing this knowing that the risks to our personal health, for most of us, we're thinking it's outweighed by the expectations and hopes for safety, and the hopes that our taking of risks, however small it is, you know, just breathing around each other in the era of COVID, you know, any risks that we're taking, including being in the desert in Nevada, in Nova Segovia, that we're hoping that our expectations are that that the risks we're taking are going to be outweighed by the benefits, and that the risks we're taking will also enormously reduce the rest of the planet's, all of humanity's and other living forms, the risky business that people are conducting with nuclearism. Because what we're doing this week, as I said earlier, has an echoing effect. It's in all of your souls as you experience this in your lives. And when you go home and when you're tweeting on social media or whatever, sharing this information, the movies and the radio programs that people are doing this week, especially, it has that echo effect. And we want the risky business of nuclear weapons, nuclearism, to stop. So for a lot of us, the conscience is saying that little risks that I'm taking, hopefully I don't get hurt, but also it's being outweighed by, for a lot of us, it's being outweighed by the fact that we can have a big impact for the rest of the future. Anyway, so that's basically it. I know we've already gone 7 minutes over time, but I don't know if people in Vegas need to be moving on, or if Carlin wanted to say hi to, or if there's any last words from the Zoom folks before we close out the live on YouTube and the Zoom meeting. Oh, is Carlin able to get there? I think.
I am here, and I really appreciate everything I've heard. And if it's possible for you to put me in touch with the person, the pastor from the woman from south of Cleveland, I would appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely. We'll get that information over to you. Pegasus, thank you so much. And Pegasus, they will be here Monday night. So if you have any questions for them, we can get them answered. Okay. But a lot of history. Thank you so much for presenting us virtually on Zoom. And Pegasus, they will be here Monday night. If you have any questions for them, we can get them answered. Okay. But a lot of history. Thank you so much for presenting